Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the second episode of the Smith and Snap Sports Podcast. We're here November 11th, 2025. It's a warm, sunny day in Logan, Utah, and a happy Veterans Day to all the vets out there. Thank you guys for your service. Kimball, how are you today?
Doing great. We appreciate the service of our veterans, keeping our country great and safe. We appreciate the freedoms they offer.
Amen. Amen. Couldn't have said it better myself. Anyway, we've got a loaded show today. We're going to be mostly focusing on the beautiful sport that is college basketball, but we also have some football things to talk about because we always do. We're going to start off here, though, by making a quick mention and shout out to Utah State and BYU's women's soccer teams. Both won their respective conferences, and they'll be playing Friday at 6 p.m. on ESPN Plus in Provo in the first round of the NCAA tournament. Kimball, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, we love to see some in-state games, but especially between Utah State and BYU. Rivalry game, so that should add some excitement and some passion to it, I'm sure. Utah State back to back 3 times in a row now.
3 times.
And that'll be their last time playing in the Mountain West before we head off to the Pac-12. So in terms of women's soccer, Utah State went out with a bang.
You always love to leave the conference better than you found it, right?
Amen.
Awesome. Well, let's get into college basketball here. Utah and Weber State. Quite the game.
This game is going to be really good. Like, initially, people were, Utah State will just walk over Weber, but Weber State has looked really good this year. And so I'm really excited for this game.
Yeah, and Weber State, they just played at the University of Utah a few nights ago and took them to overtime. Incredibly close game. 92-89, the Utah Utes ended up coming out on top, but I know Kimball made a mention to me as we were talking about this show that we needed to mention this, and I think it's worth mentioning. Kimball, what did you like from this game?
I mean, this is exactly why I'm excited for them to come up to Logan, is because of how they performed here. They consistently had about a 10-point lead pretty much the whole game. Around somewhere in the first quarter, Utah made a comeback, tied it up around 30, and then Weber State took off again, and then Utah was able to close it to overtime at the end. But Weber State, I mean, other than blowing it at the end, they looked dominant, and they were spreading points around their starters and bench really well.
Yeah, they've got some dogs on that Weber State team. Jace Whiting, former Boise State and UNLV player, led the way with 15 points for the Wildcats. Also, worth mentioning, a big game from forward Malik Goma, 14 points and 6 rebounds. Also had 2 blocks on the Utes. And a huge game off the bench for Trevor Hennig. He's had a really good first couple of games. He had 14 with 7 rebounds. Kimball, what do you think was the key to Utah coming back and winning that game, though?
I mean, I think it's Terrence Brown. He scored 36 points.
Yeah.
He scored more than a third of Utah's overall points, and his teammate Don McHenry scored 26. And so they both together put up more than 60 points. And so they clutched up when Utah really needed it, and they just got the job done. They didn't throw in the towel, being down by a lot towards the end, and they fought their way back. I mean, they got lucky. Weber State was up by 3, shooting a free throw with 10 seconds left, and they missed. And then they went down and hit the 3 to tie it up. So you make that free throw, and that's the game. So they got lucky there with Weber State missing. But, I mean, props to Utah for not throwing in the towel at all.
Yeah, for sure. And I'll be honest about Utah basketball. What it was there was I didn't really pay attention to them all summer, just because Utah's been a dumpster fire for so long in basketball.
They're not a basketball school.
They mentioned it on the broadcast. The last time these two teams, Utah and Weber State, made the tournament was the same year in 2016. So both teams are on about a 10-year drought from the tournament. But when I saw some of these transfers that Alex Jensen got, especially Terrence Brown, I believe he was in the top 10 for points per game averaged in the entire Division I last year. And so he's a dog. Terrence Brown's really good. He played for Fairleigh Dickinson for a couple of years before coming to Utah. So 36 points from him was awesome. And then Don McHenry, I thought their 1-2 punch looked really good there in the backcourt, especially late in the game, like you had mentioned.
Yeah.
McHenry, he's got a weird shooting form. I remember I watched his highlight and his first his first 3-pointer he took. I was like, there's no way this went in. Why are they showing this? And he just kept making them. And so huge credit to them. Let's transition over, though, to the Weber State Utah State game. The Wildcats are coming to Logan tomorrow night. Kimball, Utah State is 2-0. They're coming off a big win against the VCU Rams on quite possibly the worst streaming network I've ever seen.
If you can call it a streaming network.
Yeah, seriously. If you are affiliated with the Urban Edge Network at all and you're listening to this, get your crap together, man. Your streaming service sucks. But that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about Utah State, Weber State, which will be on at 7 p.m. on the much superior Mountain West network that actually, has its crap together.
Oh, yes.
And Kimball, who do you think on the Wildcats really needs to show out to win this game?
I mean, the whole team, honestly. Weber State, obviously Whiting is their main guy, but they've got 6, is that right? Yeah, 6 guys who are averaging double-digit points per game right now, which is ridiculous.
It's nuts.
And their 7th guy's at 9 points per game. And so they've got all their starters plus bench averaging this, which is just phenomenal. And so I think they just all have to fire on all cylinders. They don't really have one guy who's going to go out there and put up 30 points, but everyone on the team goes out there and puts up double digits.
Yeah, for sure. And I think they're the real deal here. Honestly, I do think those stats, it's something to look at because they did it against Utah, and Utah hasn't lost yet. Utah is a Division I basketball team. You can, talk about, well, their first game was against West Coast Baptist College, which I do want to mention. I was calling them West Coast Bible College the whole last episode. I'll look that up. It's Baptist, not Bible. So, correction there. Shout out West Coast Baptist. Y'all got worked by the state of Utah last week.
Yes, they did.
But, yeah, I think Weber State, I think the big key for them is they're a lot like Utah State, actually. They don't have a single guy on their roster, I believe, who's above 6'10" in height. And so they're going to have to rebound. They're going to have to rebound. If they're letting Utah State have second chance points, they might as well kiss that game goodbye. Now, for Utah State, their key here is they've got to make shots, right? Because if they're not making their buckets, they're not going to win this game. And I believe, in my opinion, I think Utah State has done a really good job at this through their first 2 games. They looked a little bit shaky against VCU there towards the end when they let VCU get back in the game. Granted, we didn't see it because the network was buffering and, pissing us off. But MJ Collins, man, this dude is having a season so far.
He is for real. He's averaging 22.5 points per game right now, which is just phenomenal.
He's a dog. I also want to bring up Mason Falslev. Had a really good performance, 18 points against VCU, so he was kind of a good complimentary piece there. I still think he's going to end up being kind of the number 1 guy on this team this year, but MJ Collins is definitely making his life a lot easier.
Yeah, and I mean, we needed him after losing Martinez. He's a great replacement, and he's performing, so...
For sure.
You were talking about the shooting percentage, and I think you're spot on there. Utah State so far has been phenomenal with shooting percentage, averaging 50% from 3 and 55% from the field. You compare that to Weber State. Weber State's got good as well, just under 50% from the field, but 37% from the 3. And so if Utah State is able to maintain the momentum, I think... I mean, it's going to be a good game, but I think Utah State's going to be able to take care of business.
Yeah, and look out for Gary Clark averaging a double-double. He had 12 rebounds rather in that first game against Westminster. We talked about him in pretty good detail. 14 against VCU, who is a way better opponent than Westminster. So this guy's for real. This guy gets boards. He's averaging 11.5 points to go with it, 12.5 rebounds. And so I think that's the big three that you got to look out for if you're Weber State. If you can manage to slow those guys down, I think you've got a pretty good shot of winning. If you're Weber State, it's just going to be so hard to shut the three of them down.
Yeah, and that's what they're going to have to do because they're just going to have to collectively as a team beat Utah State. They don't have a single guy who can just carry them.
Yeah, and so Kimball, before we move on from this game, what, in your opinion, is the key to this game? How does each team win this game?
Utah State needs to stay above 50% on their field goals and three. I think you keep the shooting percentage high. Collins and Falslev need to score. If either of them are having an off day, then we might have to see a game from behind. For Weber State, like you said, they got a rebound. They've been averaging a lot of rebounds so far. They've got 65 rebounds so far this year compared to Utah State's 41. And so if they can rebound a lot and stay consistent with scoring, then it's just consistency for Weber State. They got to spread the points, spread the rebounds, and just play clean basketball.
Yeah, for sure. And, obviously Utah State, man, we don't like Weber State. If we get seen as less than by BYU, then we definitely see them as less than. So they're coming into a hostile environment tomorrow night. It's going to be
it's going to be
a big one for sure.
Going to be a lot of people there for sure.
Awesome. Well, when we come back, we are going to be talking about a team down south, the BYU Cougars. They are going to be playing a huge basketball game this week. We'll talk about that first. And then we'll get into something that went terribly wrong for them on Saturday. All right, transitioning over to the BYU Cougars. Big basketball game this week. They're going to be traveling to Boston, Massachusetts. Neutral site game at the TD Garden. Kind of the homecoming game of Boston native AJ DeBonsa. They're going to be playing the number 3 UConn Huskies. Kimball, are you excited for this game or what?
I am very excited for this game. Can we just think about these last 2 weeks for BYU athletics? You've got number 7 versus number 8 in football. Biggest game in the country for the week. And now you've got number 3 versus number 7 in basketball. I don't think we've ever seen this for BYU where their football and basketball are just competing at such a high level against similarly talented teams. I don't think we've ever seen it to where they're both in the top 10 with top 10 matchups.
No, yeah, I think BYU, the cool thing that they've really figured out with the whole NIL era is they've got booster support there, right? So you've got guys like Ryan Smith that owns the Jazz, you've got the Built Bar guy, you've got one of the Crumble guys, and so there's a lot of money coming into that program right now. And it's helped them create some really, really competitive teams in this current landscape of college sports. And so I think you're spot on with that, Kimball. Both these teams, football and basketball, are just phenomenal right now. And it's really fun to watch. It's obviously still early in the season for BYU. Currently, I believe they're 2-0. 3-0. 2-0. They just beat Holy Cross, and then they have Delaware tonight, so they have a home game at the Marriott Center with Delaware. And then they get on the plane and they go out to Boston. Delaware could give them problems, but I don't see it. So I think BYU wins out there. So say they're coming into this game 3-0. This is UConn's next game. They're already 3-0. So 2 undefeated teams, early season matchup, Kimball. What do you like about BYU so far?
I like our 3 guys, AJ DeBonsa, Richie Saunders, and Robert Wright. I mean, they're averaging each between 15 and 19 points per game. They score, and they're just really freaking good. And so they're going to have to be firing on all cylinders. And, of course, my favorite player on that team, Kebaketa. What an animal. He's the leading rebounder. No surprise there for BYU, but I just love – this is just an exciting team to watch. Across all positions, it is just a fun team.
Yeah, no, for sure. The pieces look to be working really well together right now. UConn's a different beast, though. I think
Yes.
there's a reason this team's number 3 in the country. I actually watched a lot of this team last year because they were coming off of back-to-back national championships, looking for the three-peat. Last season was kind of a disappointment. They got an 8 seed, only made it to the second round. They did challenge eventual national champion Florida, lost by 2.
I was going to say, you can't be too sad losing to the national champion.
Can't be too sad about that. However, they've got some guys who last year were in the wings. They played some minutes, who are taking over this year. So look out for Terrace Reed Jr. He'll be matching up with Keba Keita. He averages 19.5 points and 10 rebounds so far, as well as 3 blocks. Solo Ball, the guard. This guy's a lot of fun to watch. This guy averaging 18.3 points, 4 rebounds, and 2 assists. And he's doing it on 88.9% from the free throw line, along with 45.7% from the field. Alex Caravan, he's been there. He was on their national championship teams a couple of years ago. He's still averaging 17.3 with 6 rebounds. And then transfer Silas DeMary Jr., 10.3 points and 6 assists. And so this team is very, very well-rounded in that starting lineup. And, I mean, we'll predict this game later, but, man, UConn's been good so far this year. They have yet to lose a game, but they also haven't won by less than 24 points. Yeah. And so they're just body bagging people. Obviously not great competition, but still they're doing what they're supposed to do. So how do you think, Kimball, the fans factor into this game? Because BYU fans travel really well wherever. There's members of the church everywhere that love BYU. But also a homecoming game for AJ DeBonsa. So how do you think that factors in to the crowd here?
I mean, obviously Boston's right there next to UConn's campus in Connecticut, so pretty much a home game for UConn. I expect them to have a lot of fans show up, especially with how big of a game it is. But like you said, BYU fans will be there in large numbers. I think these players are high enough of a caliber where it shouldn't affect them. If they're getting affected by these kind of crowds, then maybe we can raise some questions of how legit are they. If it was like in the Marriott Center, maybe a different question. But I think these guys have enough composure that they shouldn't be shaken too much by the crowd.
Yeah, they've played in big games. I mean, you look at a guy like Richie Saunders, right? Utah kid, played really, really meaningful games in March Madness last year, beat VCU, beat Wisconsin, lost to Alabama, but only because Alabama had like the greatest game known to mankind from 3-point range. And
phenomenal game.
Yeah, so they're tested. AJ DeBonsa, he's been playing in games his whole life. Rob Wright played for Baylor last year. He has tournament experience. And on the contrary, I mean, for UConn, same deal. They've played in big games. Their coach, Dan Hurley, is probably the best coach in college basketball right now. And
yeah,
the dude's a psychopath. He's not going to be satisfied if UConn gets out there and goes up by, say, 20 points early on. He's just going to keep yelling at him and losing it until that clock hits 0.
Yeah, there's no slowing down for Connecticut.
No.
They're averaging in the 90s for each of their games so far. And this is something that's a little scary for BYU fans is UConn is out producing BYU in every statistical category right now. And granted, you can look at difficulty of opponent, but BYU's had a pretty easy schedule so far as well. Villanova is definitely better than anyone UConn has played, but in shooting percentage, points, blocks, steals, assists, rebounds, UConn leads the way. And so BYU is 100% an underdog in this game.
Oh, 100%. And this will be another game that we predict later. And so definitely sit back and wait for that. Let's transition to BYU football here. Something bad happened in Lubbock.
What a heartbreak.
On Saturday. Man, Kimball, we thought this was going to be a lot closer than it was.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even have words. I'm shocked. BYU could not... I mean, the defense looked phenomenal. I think we all could trust the defense to get the job done, and they did. But, man, the offense could just not get down the field.
Yeah, and I watched this game in pretty much its entirety. I think I turned it off with like 4 minutes to go because it's like, all right, they're already dead. There's no point in watching this anymore. Here's some takeaways from the game. BYU's defense looked good in the first half. You know, they held Texas Tech to, I think it was 2 or 3 field goals. And Tech only went into the tunnel with a 13-0 lead.
Yeah.
And so if BYU's defense wasn't as good or Tech had capitalized on more opportunities there in the first half, this very well could have been like a 45-7 loss for BYU. Mm-hmm. And so the defense is the reason it wasn't just an absolute just drubbing. But it never felt close either, just because BYU's offense, every time they took the field, it was going to be 3 and out. It was going to be a turnover. Remember how we talked about how Tech, number 1 rushing defense in the country, allowed only 74 yards per game. As a team, BYU ran for only 67 yards. So Texas Tech stopped exactly what they needed to stop.
Yeah, I mean, like we talked about going into the game, if BYU was going to win, LJ Martin needed to have a dominant performance, and he only rushed for 35 yards, and that's just not... You can't win a game like that.
Yeah.
And you throw 3 turnovers into that for BYU, and Tech not turning the ball over at all. It's just you're not going to win that game. Like BYU's lucky that it was even as close as it was. Like you said, I mean, I think we learned that BYU, you could make an argument top 10 defense, but offense just is not there.
Not there, no. And like you said, BYU loses the turnover battle 3-0. They fumble twice. They throw an interception. Jacob Rodriguez, I don't know if we mentioned it by name on the podcast last week, but we've been definitely talking about him. He came into this game with 7 forced fumbles. He forces another one, and then he also has an interception. And Texas Tech's fan base believes that this guy should win the Heisman Trophy.
Give him the Heisman.
Give him the Heisman, man.
I'm all in on the hype.
I'd be phenomenal. He's so good, man. He's so good.
He by himself is outperforming most teams' defenses statistically.
Yeah, he's a dog. So I don't know really if there's much else to say about that game. Just a bad game.
Yeah.
Tech's offense didn't look great in the first half either. They should have had more touchdowns than they did.
Yeah.
But yeah, second half, they just kind of put them away. And honestly, coming out into the third quarter, BYU's defense started to look pretty tired too. And so it's just,
Yeah. And so what do you think is next for BYU? You think playoffs are gone, or...
I don't think the playoffs are gone. I don't think the playoffs are gone. They've got TCU. They've got at Cincinnati. They've got UCF. I think they'll win all 3 of those games. The only game I'm a little worried about is maybe that road game at Cincinnati. Cincinnati looked horrible against Utah, so I think BYU should be able to do kind of the same thing and expose the same weaknesses. But, an away game in November is never an easy task.
We saw that last year, BYU dropping one in Arizona.
Yeah, granted, Arizona State was a lot better than the Cincinnati team is, I believe, but... If BYU loses the Cincinnati game, they're done, because that puts Cincinnati in the conference championship with Texas Tech. I think we'll get a rematch of this game, though. BYU Tech in Arlington, Texas. I think it'll be the same. Honestly, I think Tech will kill them again. But I think BYU, they'll be one of the last teams in the playoff as of right now. They definitely deserve to be. We were talking about this last night. There's obviously not enough of a precedent to know what the committee's going to do. So buckle your seats, BYU fans. You still control your destiny, but it could get taken from you at the last minute if the committee decides they want a 9-3 SEC team.
Yeah, we'll see where the committee puts them tonight. I'm expecting them to still be in the top 12. But you have to look at Parker Kingston breaking a rib in that game. Not sure how long he'll be out or if he'll be back to 100% at all this season. So that could be a big loss for BYU as well as they try and go and finish out the season.
Yeah, well, we're rooting for them. We're hoping they finish this one out strong. But definitely a damper on the mood right now down in Provo. Like we said, they have TCU this week. Good bounce back game. So go get them, Cougars. All right, welcome back to the third portion here, the last leg of this week's episode of the Smith and Snap Sports Podcast. Still kicking around name ideas if we're going to change that, and so if you have any suggestions, comment them down below, along with giving us a follow on Spotify, a subscribe on YouTube, wherever you listen. And if there's any other platforms you want us to put this thing up on, we'd be happy to do it. So just let us know. We're rolling in. We've got 3 games across the state. We've talked about all 3 of these games. Now we're ready to give our predictions for these games. The first one is the tournament game down in Provo for the women's soccer tournament this Friday. Again, you can catch that 6 p.m. on ESPN+. Or if you're in the state of Utah, if you're in the area, fill your car up with some gas, go on down to Provo and catch it for yourself. Kimball, what's the prediction here? How do you think this game goes?
I mean, you may have the initial idea of, it's BYU. They're just going to roll through Utah State. But over the last couple of years, they've been pretty even in soccer when they meet on the field. 2-1 over the last 3 years here. BYU did beat them back in September, and I do think BYU gets it done again. I think it will be a very close game. I think I'm taking BYU 2-1 with a late goal to seal the deal.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think Utah State's a very good team. We watched their championship game in part, won it in penalty shootout, which was awesome.
Against Boise State.
We always love beating Boise here at the channel, at the podcast. However, I agree. I think BYU just a little bit too good, especially getting through the Big 12. That women's team is pretty well known for being a really good soccer team. They've played 4 national championships relatively recently. So I'm taking BYU winning 3-1. I'm with you. I think it'll be 2-1 most of the way, and then I think they'll get a late goal. Not to win, but just to kind of give them some extra insurance. Coming up to Logan, though, Wednesday, tomorrow night, Weber State, Utah State. Game of the year so far for the Aggies and the Wildcats. What do you got here, Kimball?
I mean, I'm excited for this game. Again, you may think Utah State's just going to walk over Weber State, but I would be careful about that. These are some good basketball teams. I'm excited to see how Weber State does, and dare I say, this game will decide who the second best team is in the state, right behind BYU. But I am going to go with Utah State. I think we've just got a high-powered offense this year. I think it will stay pretty close, maybe until the last couple minutes. But give me Utah State 82 and Weber State 75.
All right. Yeah, so I'm right there with you. I think we just have a little bit of a faster, more athletic offense here at Utah State. Our defense hasn't looked terrible, honestly. We're not giving up like stupid crap like we have in the past. We did have some questions there against VCU. So it'll be interesting to see as we get a larger sample size kind of what we're looking at with this team. I think it's coming down to the wire. I think Weber's going to have to play the foul game to try to get shots off, but I think Utah State wins 80-75.
All right, there you go.
And then for our last pick, let's go out to Boston.
Game of the week.
Well, I mean, Weber State and Utah State's already the game of the year. So, I mean, we can give BYU UConn game of the week. But,
this game is slightly on the same level.
It's on the same level. But, it's close. I'll be watching it, but I'm not sure if, non-hoops lovers will. No, I'm just kidding. This is obviously a better game. BYU at UConn, top 10 matchup. Kimball, where are we going for this one?
As much as it hurts, especially coming off the Tech loss, I'm going to give it to UConn. I think BYU is good enough to win this game. I just think UConn is a national championship team. I'm not saying they'll win the whole thing, but I think BYU's a solid Final Four team, and I think we'll see UConn in the national championship game. UConn is just really good. They don't miss, and so I'm taking UConn. I think I would not be surprised if BYU does pull off the upset, but traveling across the country, basically home game for UConn. Give me the Huskies. High-scoring game, I think is going to be UConn 87, BYU 81.
All right, and then I'm with you. I have a bit of a different score. Same margin of victory, though. Like you said, UConn, there's a reason this team is number 3 in the country. They haven't had a tough schedule yet, so it'll be interesting to see how they look when they play real competition here. I know last year the train came flying off the tracks really fast for UConn. They went to the Maui Invitational, played Iowa State, played Michigan State, played Memphis, played all these teams that ended up making the tournament as well and lost to all of them. And so it'll be interesting to see how this team holds up against BYU. However, I just think they're a little bit too good for the same reasons you mentioned. I have a little bit of a lower scoring game, though. I've got UConn winning this one 76-70. I think both teams will play really solid defense, but at the end of the day, I think the Huskies just a little bit too good, a little bit too well-rounded for the Cougars to hang with in this game, especially after the season opener against Villanova. The questions that left for BYU. So give me UConn to win.
Yeah, I mean, this game's going to tell us a lot. Is BYU as legit as a lot of people hope and think they will be? Like, we already know UConn, they've got the name behind them. They're going to be a legit team. But if AJ DeBonsa really wants to show the country that he is the guy, this is going to be his chance to do it.
For sure. BYU, this could be a huge coming out game for AJ DeBonsa. Going forward for BYU, I just want to make mention of this really quick. Like we said, I mean, Kevin Young, I think we got to clap it up for him again. Let's clap it up like we did last week. Good job,
Phenomenal recruiter.
Good job. Phenomenal recruiter. Phenomenal scheduler, too. I mean, after UConn, they have a 6-day break. Next Friday, 2 p.m. in the Delta Center in Salt Lake City, Utah. They play Wisconsin. Then they go to their multi-team event. They play in Florida at Miami. Not a home game for Miami. It's a neutral site, but basically a home game for Miami. They're in a tournament for Thanksgiving weekend. I believe there's other teams in that event too, so they'll probably have another game after that. They have Clemson later on, and that one will be at Madison Square Garden in New York City. That one will be in December. So, yeah, they've got a good schedule. They got everyone's favorite Abilene Christian. They're coming to the Marriott Center.
Hey, my dad's alma mater, eh?
Yeah, man, Abilene Christian. Go Wildcats, man.
Go Wildcats.
Yeah, and then obviously not to mention the conference schedule. That's just a gauntlet. And then BYU, they actually had a pretty good recruiting pickup today. You want to mention that, Kimball?
Yeah, the long-awaited decision from center Abdullah Ahmed, 6'10", 220-pound center from the G League, committed to BYU, picking them over teams like Houston.
Big pickup.
Huge pickup.
Big pickup, especially for Houston. It sets a precedent. The fact that guys are willing to pick BYU over Houston is actually kind of insane.
Yeah, and I mean, this guy, he's from Egypt, and it's crazy to see how Kevin Young's been able to not just get national commits, but international commits as well.
Yeah, no, he's bringing in guys from all over the place, and it's been really fun to watch. And so, yeah, big times for BYU basketball. We'll see if they can do it against UConn. They've got Delaware tonight, so if you're feeling bored, tune into that game. A lot of good college basketball games going on this week, and yeah, this has been the Smith and Snap Sports Podcast. Kimball, anything else we want to cover before we get out of here?
Nah, have a wonderful week.
Have a wonderful week.
Be seeing you later.
Yep, see you later.